Ladies and gentlemen, this is an interesting interview that I had with one of my past coaching clients, a guy called Blake, and he runs his own fitness coaching program and he does mental health and that kind of stuff. We had a really interesting conversation about his sort of fitness journey, him working through some of his body dysmorphia, like his binge eating and his bulimia, how he dealt with the sort of mindsets that came up. And he's a really interesting guy. Here's his transformation on the screen. I think he said that he was much chubbier than that and more unhappy than that on the left, but he just doesn't have any pictures from that time because he was obviously, really depressed and stuff. But he's someone that's come a hell of a long way with his body over the last 7 years. And more to the point with his mindset, he's done a hell of a lot of work on himself. And he's a really interesting guy. I like him a lot. I've had so many conversations. Like I said, he used to be a coaching client of mine. He was a client for a couple of years, for actually 2 years. I worked with him. So yeah, really interesting guy. Hope you enjoy this conversation. And if any of you, by the way, are struggling with something like bulimia, body dysmorphia, some of those topics, because they really don't get talked about as much with men. I think a lot of women talk about their body image issues and not liking themselves and all of that. But men, generally speaking, we feel a little bit of shame. We feel a bit like it's not masculine to talk about those things. It's not masculine to suffer from those things. If you are suffering from them, you are welcome to leave a comment. I will reply to every single comment. You are also welcome to go on the forums. Everybody there is pretty welcoming, I promise. You can also, because I know this is more of like a private thing, this is one of the few times that I will ever do this, by the way, but you are welcome to email me and I will reply. I can't promise that I'll, write 200 fucking thousand words to you, but I promise I'll read it. I promise I'll reply. Because I know this is something that a lot of guys, women too, women go through this too, but especially a lot of guys carry a lot of shame when it comes to not liking their body and all of that kind of stuff. On top of that, there's a few things that I have done content on that can help, such as doing what I call mirror therapy. So you go into the bathroom, you look into your own eyes in the mirror, and you say, I love you. I've done lots of content on this, so just search my channel for mirror therapy. If you're someone that has issues with your body or your mental health or any of that, this can be quite confronting. So be gentle with it, just sort of see what happens. Do this every day and just sort of see what happens. On top of that, an exercise that I really like to do, that I get all of my clients to do, is write 50 things about yourself that are likable. And what we're trying to do there is sort of show yourself some evidence that, hey, you are likable, you are lovable, you're not a complete piece of shit if that's something that you struggle with. You might struggle to write 50 things. That's okay, just write 5 and slowly add to the list over time. You have the rest of your life to make this damn list. You don't have to rush it. It's not a fucking competition or a race. But yeah, there's all these sort of exercises that can help you with your mental health. Again, if you're struggling, please leave a comment. I would love that. I will reply to everybody's comment. There's nothing wrong with you. Enjoy this chat with Blake. And big shout out to Blake. I appreciate him being so open and honest in this conversation. I especially want to talk about the bulimia shit because that is something that does not fucking get talked about. First of all, in general,
Oh,
let alone men. Like
yeah,
men don't fucking talk about bulimia and shit.
yeah, anorexia, bulimia, all that stuff. I mean, body dysmorphia, I think that's like one of the biggest things in like kind of bodybuilding or just like fitness in general, right? Everybody has, it's really not a common or it's not really talked about, right? Like no one talks about it, right? And I think a lot of
100%.
from body dysmorphia and just like not feeling like you're enough or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's my question, and fuck it, we can just say that this is the start of the podcast. How do you balance? Because you are someone that is heavily into fitness. You're obviously ridiculously fit, ridiculously attractive. How do you balance that, like pushing your clients and pushing yourself to be better, like literally to improve your body while not fueling like body dysmorphia? In other words, how do you say your body is like okay as it is right now? Love your body, don't fucking hate it, but let's make it better.
Progress, not perfection, right? That's sort of a very simple way to put it. There's a lot more to it than that, right? Like it's going to be everybody's journey through that isn't easy at all, right? Like, and everybody's going to be a little bit different because how they perceive themselves, like everybody, how they kind of see themselves, what they see in the mirror, right? It's completely different, right? From what how I would see him, how you would see him, right? Everybody's journey in that is just a little bit different, right? You can find similarities and like common ground between people, but at the end of the day, it really sucks because it stems from this fact that people feel like they're not enough, and
Yeah.
that I mean, that's kind of a tough deal because there's like a bit of a balance with both, right? Because it's, in my opinion, it's definitely okay to want more, right? And to not be happy with what you see in the mirror. I mean, that's, if you're like really, really overweight or something like that, or just not happy with the way you look, I mean, that's an okay thought, right? But it becomes an issue, right, when it becomes, I mean, it's leading to you to being super, super depressed or just sort of thought like anything, like not feeling like you're enough, very, very unhappy with yourself, right? Like there's a range, like it's like a spectrum, right? Like you want to be here, right, kind of in the middle. I think that's okay because then you can be like, okay, well, yes, I'm not happy right now, but I'm okay with it. I'm making progress towards where I want to be, right? Versus, okay, this isn't enough. Like if I don't make this right, like it's over. It's the end of the world. I think a lot of it stems from people having this kind of like, it's not enough, or like if I fail at this, it's ground zero, right? It's up in flames. They have this like all or nothing like mindset. They don't understand that it's like, or they have the ever moving kind of goalpost thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They might get to their body weight that they want to be, how muscular they want to be, how ripped they want to be, and then it's just like it's not enough. Like they're not happy with it at all. I think that becomes a really, really big issue with a lot of people, right? It happens to so many guys at the gym, right? They finally get jacked or they finally get ripped, but they still think they look like shit. They still think they look small or whatever. You name it, right? Insert whatever adjective.
I mean, that was the good looking loser. That's the point of the good looking loser website, right? Like he
Yeah,
was jacked, he was perfect. And he's like, but how come women aren't like hitting on me? And it's like, well, first of all, because you got to put yourself out there and
yeah,
actually be where women are and talk to them. But he's like, how come I don't have 5,000 girlfriends? Fuck, there must be something wrong with me. And he talked about he got to that like neurotic point, which you can speak to this in a second. Like maybe you've seen other like bodybuilding guys get to this point where he's like, all right, my left bicep is like 40, he would have been bigger than that, like 19.76 fucking centimeters or inches or whatever, and then my other one is only like 13.87. That's why women don't like me, because my left bicep is 1% smaller than my right one, or my calves are like a little bit too small, and like the biggest jacked fucking bodybuilders on stage have massive calves, and girls must be looking at my calves going, why would I date a man with only small calves like that? So have you seen it like maybe with your clients or people that you've just seen in your life, that they get to that point where it's like
yeah.
fucking neuroticism, like
Oh yeah.
no abs?
I mean, I think that happens to everybody to a degree, right? I mean, they get rejected by one girl, one person, and then they think it's this just one little thing. Like if they fix that, like then it's going to be changed. It's going to be perfect, and they really, really hyper focus on it. That's just not a problem with bodybuilding, right, or anything like that. That's an issue with kind of a lot of people and how they view themselves and view their appearance, right? They always think it's something when it's just, it just wasn't going to happen between you two. There's a lot of people out there that it can work with, right? Just because it didn't work out with them doesn't mean you can't find someone else, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Do you want to talk a little bit about your days and your own maybe journey with bulimia? We can sort of show some of your images on the screen while we talk, but you were someone that went through,
oh yeah.
this body dysmorphia sort of transition.
So it's an interesting deal, right? My whole life, I grew up kind of just overweight, out of shape. I played sports. I didn't get into really, really good shape until like late senior year of like high school. You know, then I got like, it all happened. Like I was really good at sports, ended up going to college for it. I ended up getting like injured, right? My right shoulder, it dislocated and then just kind of went out, everywhere. And through like a period of inactivity, right, I gained like, it was like 40 pounds. I got super depressed, all that stuff.
Sure.
And then it was one of those things, right? I didn't like it, didn't, hated how I looked, all that stuff. And so one of the things that I always struggled with was just like binge eating, things like that. It was really, really, really tough for me. And so how it would kind of go, that cycle is I would, gosh, it sucks. I mean, I guess I got it kind of from wrestling. Um,
Mm.
because it's like you'd work so hard during the workouts that you'd end up puking anyways, and you'd by chance just so happen to make weight that day, right? Um, so whenever I would just start exercising or doing cardio, like you say after I binged or something, I would go exercise a bunch of things. There's a whole bunch of things. Like bulimia is a very big term. A lot of people like they binge
Yes,
that.
yes.
There's a lot of different compensatory behaviors for bulimia. It's not just what everybody thinks, where they just immediately go puke in a trash can, right? It
Yeah.
expresses itself in a lot of different ways, right? I did that, but a lot of people they would still like classify someone as bulimic behaviors, even if they're not like purging at all, right? They can
Yeah,
still,
it's almost like a mindset that's bulimia, because
yeah,
Imogen has, my girlfriend
yeah,
has worked through her own bulimia, so I
yeah,
understand it decently well. It's more like the mindset. It's that
yeah,
sort of like cycle, especially if you pair that with binge eating, which
yeah,
Imogen does as well.
mhm,
It's like the binge eating, holy fuck, I've eaten too much. I need to deal with this.
yeah,
And for some reason, some people like that purging, the throwing up, can be seen, or at least in their mind, they're like, it's a healing thing. I'm fixing the
yeah,
damage that I just did. In
yeah.
other cases like yours, and you can speak to this, was it sort of like a punishment thing, or was it just like what happened? And
Gosh, it was probably a bit of both, right? Sometimes I would work out so hard that I would just end up puking, and if I feel like I didn't work out hard enough, like I would just do that.
yeah,
Like help make weight, then yeah, I would just end up, sometimes I would just go puke in the trash can just because I felt like I had to do it anyways. But yeah, it was like this huge mindset of just like, dude, I fucked up, like you fucking idiot, like keep going, you got to make up for it. Then from that led to like just anorexic behavior. Then I lost like 40 pounds in like a month. I was just like, not a month, but like,
wow,
but, from that, I just like didn't eat at all. I would maybe eat, gosh, I would just like drink protein shakes. Like that was it.
mm,
So first like lost weight for the first time. It took quite a while before I kind of got to where I needed to like mentally to like really, really make a lot of progress to get to where I am like now. It's really having that consistent kind of baseline like of everything, before you really can start to it's really like your relationship with food is like huge. You have to view it
yes,
like, and it's weird because I went through kind of both spectrums of it, but now I'm kind of in that weird sort of, well, not weird, but like normal middle ground where I view food as just like food.
yeah, it's like a fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to think it's how most people view it. It's just something to be enjoyed, not
I
overconsumed.
mean, you say that, brother, but I feel like the vast majority of the population, especially in your country and my country, don't have a healthy relationship with food. I think they
Yeah.
use it and they have that extreme mindset of like, I had a bad day at work, I need to overeat, especially with alcohol as well mixed in there. How
Yeah.
how did you transition from that? Because really, you're talking about an extreme
Yeah.
view of food and dieting and health and stuff like that. How did you transition from that very extreme view, which is what a lot of body dysmorphic people
Sure.
have, to the more almost like you said consistent, but almost like nuanced? Like,
Yeah.
was that hard to go from extreme to like I got to bring it down to just like how the fuck did you do that transition?
I mean, it didn't, happen overnight, right? At first, I went help. I mean, for one thing, like, hell, if you want to go into even more into my backstory in like college, I did a bunch of drugs, partied all while going through like anorexia, bulimia, all that. I ended up having to go get help eventually, like my first semester of nursing school. I was kind of with people for about what I think it was like 5 days, and then
Hmm.
kind of helped, got tools, then met with like counselors and all that stuff, dietitians, all that. Then that was kind of my first experience that I ever worked with like a coach. Then I just kind of kept on going, kept on getting better and better shape. I kept on like posting. What we did was like, and I needed it at the time, but everybody's solution might be a little bit different, right? What we did was
Hmm.
like track calories, right? There was just like a set kind of like calories that I was just gonna eat every day, and it was just gonna be that. If I went a little bit over that, it was fine. If a little bit under that, it was fine. I think that's probably for me, that was a really good approach. I don't know if it's gonna be the best approach for everybody. That might be a little too like neurotic for most people to track like calories day in and day out. Eventually, after that, it took a long, long time, right? Like you're looking at the person who's like, what, 7 years out from all that. So it's, kind of the way I kind of view it now is much, much, much different than
Mm.
say 7 years ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it all feels very fresh at the time, and you think it's like, well, it is at the time like this big thing. Imogen, when she first started going through her own, bulimia and body dysmorphia, and speaking to, counselors and nutritionists and that, it feels like the most. I'll ask you rather than tell you. Did
Sure.
you feel like there was feelings of like hopelessness of like, fuck, how am I going to do this?
All the time.
Yeah.
I think with everything, right? When, gosh, yeah, with like all that, I mean, it's just like, am I ever going to get out of this? That was with everything that I ever like struggled with. I feel like that's whatever sort of like in your life is the current like hurdle or milestone that you're trying to achieve, you kind of feel like, oh man, this is hopeless. Like there's no,
Yeah, yeah,
and then
100%. Me too. Yeah.
finally get the ball rolling and you're just like, oh wow. It's almost like it's a weird thing because it's like at the beginning you're at like despair, right? Like there's
Yes.
that you can do this, and then you start to get a bit more confidence and a bit more belief. It's like achieving those little baby steps day in and day out, and it turns into something great, right? It's like little bit by little bit, and then it's awesome. It starts to really, really change. It's sort of an interesting deal because when we talk about this, it's like I'm viewing it. I feel like I'm at a different like mountaintop, and I'm looking at like a way, way past like part of my like journey. It's sort of one of those things. Like I guess I'm the product of when you see it from the other side, and you almost don't. I mean, I don't want to say that I don't ever have trouble with like binging or anything like that, but my mindset about it is 20, 50 times healthier than what it was.
Yeah,
Um,
you've reprogrammed your mind.
yeah, 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 and that was over like 7 years, right? It takes a little bit. I
Yeah.
think I'm not gonna say it was like sunshine and rainbows for like the first 2 years, right? I think it takes a long time. I used other things to like cope with it. It was just kind of one of those deals. I've always been someone to go to like extremes with things. I think
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
I think a lot of people from being loser or kind of your site are all kind of that same way. It's like all or
Yes.
we're just gonna go full in. We're just gonna go do it. And I think it's a blessing and a curse, right? It's a tool to be appropriately, right? Because it's like if you go all in on the right things, it's just wild success, right? And if you follow like the formula, it's just perfect, right? Everything goes great.
I say it's like we all have ADHD, right? And I say the same, with someone who does, to someone that does have ADHD. It's like you're not fucked up because you keep like going extreme and getting distracted by everything. You just need to learn the skill of focus. In
Yeah,
other words, it's like use that intense, all in, extreme, all or nothing mindset that you have. There's nothing wrong with that, but just be focusing on self improvement, self love, like goals, connecting with other human beings rather than, let me beat myself up for not being
yeah,
perfect. Let me fucking make myself throw up. Or in my case, let me go all in with fucking alcohol. And, I had issues with binge eating and shit like that. So
yeah.
I think if we can just learn to fucking focus. But yeah, man, I love how open and vulnerable you are with this shit. If there's somebody else who's listening and maybe they're, hearing some of this and going, fuck, man, I sometimes struggle with binge eating. And more to the point, within beating myself up for it and going, fuck, I need to beat myself up more to fix the binge eating or whatever it might be. What would you say to that person who's like at the very fucking start of this shit, feeling that hopelessness and that despair?
One step at a time. I mean,
Yeah.
not gonna happen overnight, right? Like I would say like the first get like a mentor or a coach or someone who's done it before. The one thing that I can say when I went to go find someone to help me out with this, like they went through the same like journey that I right. Like I found someone who actually was in my like footsteps and actually like
Yeah.
struggled with this. I think if you need to find someone who has struggled with it, but they're now like so far on the other side that they have an opposing viewpoint to you, right? It's like they see it from a different light now. I think that's a
Yeah.
very
They can like zoom out and see the whole picture.
they can zoom out and see the whole picture. That's exactly right. It's like they're not really in. They might struggle with it from time to time, but they're not like really in the same like boat. Like they know how to get out and they know how to help you out too.
Yeah.
It also helps because it's like it really helps to be able to like confide in the person you know, who's like coaching you and all that, like the fact that they've dealt with it too, and they like understand exactly, they understand kind of how you view yourself and all that. They understand how it feels to like not be happy, or to just like beat yourself up, or to look yourself in the mirror and just like really like hate everything, you know? I think that's one of the toughest things to be able to like handle and see, then like get past. You know, I think
Yeah.
it's really, really, it's hard, right? I mean, it's yeah. I mean, a lot of it takes time, right? That would be the first thing that I think. I think it's, everybody thinks they're gonna get through with that within a month, and it might be something,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it's probably something that I struggle with. Probably, it's weird how I'm gonna word this, and hopefully I word it correct, because it's not like it ever goes away, right? It's like
Mm.
it's probably gonna still be there, but it's like I'm a lot much stronger to just like push it aside, like the
And
feeling.
you understand it.
Yeah,
So it
and
doesn't scare you anymore.
it doesn't scare. Yeah, it's like with depression or suicidal
Mm.
thoughts.
Mm.
I've struggled with that too, right? You know, it's one of those things. Like every now and then, you'll still get depressed. There's nothing like wrong with you, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Is like people, when they get depressed, is like they think there's something like they're horrible, right? You know, I think that's a big thing. It's like you don't feel like you're enough. A lot of that stems from like you don't feel like you're enough. You don't feel like you're good.
Yeah.
Um, and it's something that you might have to like, I'm not going to sit there and say like I never have like those feelings from time to time, but it's like I see it from another viewpoint, and I see it from a more nuanced, like I understand like what it is, and it's not going to like be like, it's not going to, I'm really not going to affect it, like let it affect my life. It's like going to be like when the I don't know, oil change like comes onto my car, right? I'm just going to understand
I'm going
it's,
to fix it.
fix it. You know,
Yeah.
it's I think using depression as like a tool or kind of a litmus test, you understand like something in your life currently isn't right, and then you just got to go fix it. I mean, I work with a lot of people who are suffer from depression, suffer from alcoholism. I mean, a lot of it can stem from things that are just going on in their life, right? Like if they were to
Yep.
just fix those things, and some of it, there's more forces than just, they can do their part essentially, but there's still other forces at play. But some of the things, right, it's just like something that they could fix like that, you know, and then it's like a
Yeah,
lot.
bro.
Yeah.
I heard a really great quote from Dr. Phil when he went on the Joe Rogan show, and he said, "If you're depressed, so, if your life is going to complete shit and you're not depressed, something's wrong there.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck wouldn't you be depressed if your life is really going to shit?" So the quickest fix is like, it's not necessarily quick, but like get in there and fix that shit
Yeah. It's like, I mean, a way to word it is like, why would you sit down in hell or lay down and kick back in hell, right? Like if
and
you're,
have a smile. Yeah,
yeah, or if you're just like in the desert, like why would you stay there, right? Like you could
yeah,
at least like try to get out, right? You know, if you're in a room that's like on fire, right? Like you just leave the room, you know. It's like, why are you, you know, it's figuring out and identifying what's going on, and then just fixing that problem. You know, if it's something that you got to cut out of your life, that's probably what you might have to do. If it's something that's an easy fix, that's probably what you got to do. Sometimes
yeah.
remove yourself from the situation, kind of look at what's going on, and then just make the best decision for you, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like that's the value of a coach or a counselor, or especially like you're saying. I fully agree with what you're saying about find someone if you can who's been through the same shit, or at least very similar to it.
Yeah.
One thing that person is really good at doing, because they're not you,
Yeah.
they're not stuck in the actual problem that you are. They're zoomed out a little bit, and so they can say, hey, have you tried looking at it from this perspective? Or actually, if you look at the grand scope of your life, this is just one little chapter. You'll be okay. Just change this and you'll eventually be okay. But often when you're stuck in it, like depression is a hell of a beast, because it plays tricks on the mind.
Oh,
It
yeah.
tells you lies. It tells you what the future is going to be like. It's always going to be like this. In fact, it's going to be worse. It tells you how you're going to feel in the future. I'm going to feel worse than this. It's not going to get better. And it zooms in on the current problems in your life so much, or it makes you zoom in so much, that you literally can't see the
Yeah.
bigger picture. You can't see that this is just a chapter.
The way that I kind of feel about it, like when I was super depressed or anything like that, I almost felt like I was in a maze, right? And
100%.
my,
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like my coach or therapist or counselor or whatever, they could see the maze like top down and they can know the path.
Yeah, and they're like, you're this close to the exit. Just walk over there, and you're. I'm miles from the exit. I'm never gonna make it. I should kill myself. And they're like, no, 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 you're so close.
Yeah,
Just go that way.
yeah,
That way.
just turn around and go to the exit, right? You're just at a dead end, right? Like the path that you're going down currently is not going to help you out at all, right? And that's like, it's one of those things. It's sort of like give and take because you have to listen and confide in that person, right? You got to find the person that you're going to trust to lead you through it.
Mm.
And sometimes that's easier said than done. Sometimes a lot of people, it's tough because it's like when you're in that situation, sometimes you want to just push everyone away, right? Completely.
Because you don't want to be a burden.
Yeah, you don't want to be a burden or anything like that, and then just do your own way, then just like keep going through the dead end, right? You want to try to like dig a hole through that, and that's just not going to work. It's you got to reach out for a hand, right? But you got to walk with them, right? It's one of those deals.
If I can shove a wedge in there and piggyback off what you
Sure.
said, I want to just insert my own agenda for a second.
Yeah.
I say this so much when it comes to depression, any mental issues, any of that stuff. Shop around with
Oh yeah.
different coaches and different. The number one thing that I see people doing, dude, is they're like super depressed and like they're in a very dark place. They'll go to one counselor or one psychologist or one coach or whatever. Maybe they don't click with that person because guess what? You're not going to click with everybody.
Yeah.
And they'll go, counseling doesn't work, psychology doesn't work, like I can't fix myself. And it's like, no, fuck, like you probably have to see, like I myself, the first 2 counselors that I went to when I was super depressed, my mother went to both of the sessions with me because I was just so fucking like catatonically depressed, and she went with me. After the first one, I was just sitting there the entire session going like, fuck man, like is something wrong with me? Like this guy's basically telling me, he was sort of shaming me for my depression and shit and saying, well, you just need to get over yourself and shit. And I was like, I just felt awful. The second we walked out of that session, my mother was like, I am never taking you to that man ever again. We're going to find someone else. If she hadn't been there,
Yeah.
I would have just sat there thinking there was something wrong with me. And
Sure.
it's like, no, you just might not click with every single psychologist or counselor. So I really want to fucking underline that. There's nothing wrong with you if you go to one counselor and you don't click. You might have to go to a few.
That's the thing, is like you might have to try a bunch. I think some people have that expectation that you're going to meet this counselor or meet this person that
And just fix it.
like immediately, right? And even if you do find a person that's like you click with, it might take a little bit of time from that, right? Like it's going to be something that you have to work through because it's like depression, it's like a sign or a symptom. That's kind of the way I view it. It's like something's going on, and it might come back, at different points in your life when things aren't like working out. It'll be something that you have to address, right? It's not going to be, you're going to come at it and have much better tools though to approach this situation. And that's where the counselor and all those types of tools and resources, they kind of come in play. They can kind of everything. And it's like the counselor, they also work as a really good kind of, I don't want to say, how do I say it, like springboard or someone to bounce ideas off of. Like it's someone that you
a sounding board. Like you can just say shit and they'll bounce it back to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good idea to go, not just see one, but I mean, if you find one that works well, I mean, go and stick with them. But I mean, it's not like the journey has to end there, right? You can find more people, resources, come talk to. Like, it's one of those things. I guess if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to make it to the end of the destination, go with a group, right? Like you might need a couple of people to help you out through this. It's everything's better when you're in a group, right? Like everything, solo vacations aren't as fun as group vacations, I think, right? It's like, it's one of those deals. Like you probably want people in your corner, right? Like, you see this world champion, like prize fighter, right? Like he's got like 50 people in his corner.
There's this weird, especially with men, dude. I think it's mostly men. Women do it too, but I think men do it the most, where there's this like stigma around like asking for help.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, I can't have a team. I can't have any coaches. I can't have anyone helping me because then I'm a burden. I'm asking for help. You talked about prize fighters. My favorite person to go to is Novak Djokovic, the current world #1 tennis player.
Mm-hmm.
He was at a point, I think it was in 2010, where he just wasn't, he was like good. He was number 15 in the world. And he was like, I want to become number one. I want to beat Federer and Nadal. I want to be number one. And so he got this team of people around him. He went and got the best sleep expert, the best nutritionist. He tried all these fucking crazy diets and all this, got his sleep like autistically perfect. All of this shit, got this team around him, and now he's the best player of all time. So I think there's a weird stigma there that you're a burden, or that you're bothering people, or that like real men don't ask for help, or asking for help is like an admission that like, fuck, I'm weak, I'm wrong,
Yeah.
I'm bad. It's like, no, we're just trying to speed run your success. Don't you want to get there quicker? Like I myself have like fucking 5 or 10 coaches.
Yeah.
And I tell all of my clients to, don't just come to me for coaching. Don't come to Blake for coaching. Like have fucking multiple. But yeah, there's that stigma.
The times in your life when you're probably making the most progress, right, is just when you have a ton of people kind of helping you out and telling you what to do.
Yeah.
It's I know you I mean, I know a lot of people rag on the school system and like kind of how education works, but think about it, like every year that a kid goes through like school, they're making a ton of progress, right? And they have like 8 teachers. They have a
Hmm.
ton of people helping them. That's people probably grow and develop the most when they're in school, university, right? And they have like 50 different people like coaching them, teaching them, all that stuff, right? A lot of times when you see people like have a bunch of like struggles and all that, it's when they're just finally out on their
When
own.
they're completely alone.
Yeah, when they're completely alone. They're at their first job. They have no like zero mentors, anything like that. It's really really tough for them. You know, real world stuff. You know, it's better to go at it with a group than go at it alone, right?
Yeah. And if you don't have any money, just get a group of friends or go on my forums, which are completely free. Get somebody else who's into self-improvement.
You can find a ton of forums, right, when you don't have the cash. I think that's a hard thing. It's definitely tougher for younger people because it's like at that age they have, but there's tons of resources that are free that you can go to, right? That you can go get help with. I mean, there's so many online, right? You can go, I mean, you could just do a quick Google search and find like 50, right?
Bro, we live in the craziest time of society, at least, up until this point, where like whatever issue you're having, you can literally type into a fucking keyboard, I'm having this issue, what do I do? And it's like, here is 10,000 fucking resources to help you for free.
Yeah.
Not asking anything from you, just fucking here you go. So, yeah.
It's one of those things. Now it's like we have so much information that it's like you have to be able to sort good.
Yeah, it's
what-
gone the other direction where there's like too much and you get freaked out. You're like, I can't do all this.
Yeah, it used to be like getting the information was really, really difficult, but now it's like you have information at your fingertips. You just got to find what's worth it and what's not, you know?
And the only way you do that is by taking action. You said that before. It's like, just take baby steps.
Yeah, you just got to go for it. Ideally, you find someone who's able to point you in the right direction, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to do a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Even then, I say, like, you're never going to go that far off track that you, like, you'll always course correct, is what I'm trying to say. So even if at the start you're like, fuck, I don't know who to listen to. Should I listen to Andy? Should I listen to this other guy? Should I listen to Blake? It's like, just pick anyone, fucking anyone, as long as they're not telling you clearly psychopathic shit like,
Yeah.
hey, the way to get a great body is to fucking strangle kittens and then drink their blood and then punch grandma in the face. Like, yeah, maybe don't listen to that. But as long as the advice isn't hurting anyone,
Yeah.
just try it. And you'll quickly figure out, oh shit, this isn't working for me. You kind of used the example before of what you used to work through some of your body dysmorphia was counting calories.
Yeah.
Imogen tried that and it made her more extreme and she had a more extreme mindset. So she tried it. It didn't work for her. And she was like, okay, now I'll try something else. So that was still like the right direction to go in to then figure out, fuck, I'm going to go this other way. So I don't think you can ever really make a mistake.
Yeah. That's my recommendation is find someone who's kind of been in your footsteps and is like super successful in that area, then like listen to them. If their approach for it isn't working at all, then you might have to go find like another way, right? Kind of what it is, right? You might have to try a bunch of different things. It's you are gonna have to course correct, right? It's sort of like imagine you are racing, right? And you're at turn like 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Your coach is giving you information right there and right there and right there, right? Your adjustment might be a little bit different every single time, right? To get to the right destination or to make the right track record, right? It's everybody's journey from A to B is going to be a little bit different, but I mean, there's going to be some similarities, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Is this the kind of stuff, let's plug your shit out for a little bit or plug your shit for a little bit. So you do coaching.
Yeah.
Mostly fitness. How much of that do you do like mindset as well? Like if someone listens to this and they go, fuck, I think this guy could help me with mindset. Is that something you help people with?
Yeah, I help that with people. I mean, I'm there for people 24/7. I don't help everybody out with it. I mean, a good amount of my clients, right, like, they don't need any of that, right? They just need someone to, like, give them diet, plan, all that stuff, and they're, like, good, I'm checking in on them every day, and they're doing it, but some of the people, right, their struggle with is just, like, mental stuff, it's, how they view themselves, how they see themselves, like, that's the big issue there, and it's like, I'm not gonna make this person, like, try to do too many things at once, like and it's the thing that I try to coach a lot of people on, like, if you have this mindset or if you view yourself this certain way, even if you get your body to whatever you want it to be, right, you're still not gonna be with it at all. You're just going to be in my case, it was upset with just bigger muscles. It just, that's kinda what happened. I wasn't in
100%.
on myself that I, was able to fix everything, It
Yeah.
took right? And for some people, I guess in my case, like I wasn't you don't know what you don't know and you don't really know until you get there, right? So until I kind of got there to that point, I didn't realize like, oh, wait, like I got to work on the mental stuff. Like I'm not going to be happy until I'm just not going to see it right until I fix, it, you know. I think you can work at both at the same time, but if someone's struggling with all the mental stuff, I try to coach them through that like, hey, like listen, until you kind of get everything mentally right, like let's just kind of maintain what we got with fitness and all that and you can introduce it into your life to make it like sort of I really believe like fitness and all that stuff and just like general activity, it's really, really good for your health, right? So let's do that, but let's like not make it too extreme, right? Let's just incorporate it into your life, then just focus more on what you got going on.
Yeah.
I probably got like 15 people that I'm coaching through that type of stuff right now. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like kind of day by day. I just kind of check on them and see how they're doing. If they,
Yeah.
you know, if they worked
Yeah.
out.
My favorite thing to say, to take it back a step to what you're talking about before, when you feel like a client needs to work on more of that mental side of things, I phrase it like this. Okay, look, you're saying, let me ask you a question. The reason that you want to work out and get a great body and be fit and all of that, what is the reason? And they'll tell you reasons, and then you say, no, 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 like why are you doing, what is the actual reason? And every single time they'll say, because they want to be happy. Like that's why we do any fucking goal, because they want to be happy. And so then I'll say, so do you really think that like the way you're doing it right now, where you're hurting yourself and you're punishing yourself and you're guilt tripping yourself and all of that, is that making you happy? No. And so I say, okay, so you're sacrificing happiness right now to do this other thing that you hope will make you happy. What if we just work on the happiness stuff now?
Yeah,
Like, we'll still do the fitness shit as well, but what if we make sure we address that happiness? In other words, you can be happy while you get that great body, or in my case, while you get that relationship or make that money. Like, you don't have to sacrifice that, especially in bodybuilding. Bro, that feels like an industry where a lot of people go, okay, let me completely fucking sacrifice my happiness for like years,
everything.
and then I'll be happy.
Sacrifice their social life, everything.
Yep.
They do a whole bunch of stuff. It just ends up making their whole life miserable for no reason. A lot of them will do all this stuff just to compete for like a plastic trophy that doesn't really.
That's what my coach says. My coach is a bodybuilder, and he says, like, at the end of the day, we're just competing for a fucking little trophy, little
Yeah,
trinket.
trophy. At the end of the day, you have to like enjoy where you're at right now
Yeah.
and like progress. Like for me, it's like the weird sense of satisfaction that I get from just like looking at a logbook or something like that and seeing that I did better the next day is awesome. For me, it's like it's not there's no goalpost, right? It's just like I'm the man who loves to walk at this point, right? Walk.
Bro, yes. In other words, enjoy the journey, not the
Yeah,
destination.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just kind of walking and seeing what happens. It's no real yeah, there's no real kind of end goal in mind or end goal post. I think a lot of people have this like once I get ripped or once I do whatever, like I'll be able to do this or do that and or I'll be happy is what it all just
Yeah. Yeah.
and then they realize but the problem is like that's I work with so many people like that. I mean, I don't want to say every single one of my clients has that kind of going on, but a lot of them do, right? It's
Like as in, I'm doing this just to eventually be happy.
yeah, and it's kind of tough because it's like we have to work on that and understand like if you don't have that like happiness is kind of a feeling. You might, once you get there, right, you might establish, like, you might feel good, like you did it, right? Um, but it's not going to be like lasting, like being content, right? I think a thing that they need to shift their mindset on is just being content with where they're at and understanding
Mm,
like progress towards it. I think if you
yeah.
beating yourself up over everything, it's ends up being it's like when you said when you have a bunch of clients who beat themselves up over it if they didn't do this or didn't do that right. It's like, do you think that's going to go away if we don't fix this issue now? And it's like you understand you're just it's probably going to be even more heightened once you get to that destination because you're going to realize it wasn't the fix. you know?
Hmm.
It's it takes a little bit of time to fix that type of behavior though. It's tough. I mean, everybody kind of gets hard on themselves when they don't like reach their expectations, but I think it's like
Sure.
you understand that you could be a lot more than what you currently are and you're unhappy with it. I think it's okay to be unhappy with that, but it's like understanding that, it's not the end of the world. You're making progress, right? You're doing what you can to do a little bit better. Because at the end of the day, like happiness, like sadness, they're all kind of like feelings. You need to develop this like consistent kind of baseline with all that.
Yeah, almost like stoicism or
Yeah.
resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just being like content with where you're at. It's almost like water. Like it's gonna do whatever it, kind of does. It's ideally it's just kind of a mellow, like lake type deal. I mean, nothing is really like too much or too little at that point. I think understanding like it's gonna be okay, right? Like if you don't end up getting like stupidly ripped or something like that, or really, really jacked, it's understanding like it's sort of like doing it for just this joy of doing it. That's kind of what I do. And if, that's what I help out with a lot of clients. Like they think they have to like work out or like lift weights or anything like that. It's like, no, you don't have to do all that stuff. Like if you really hate it, like you can get in shape doing other things, you know?
Yeah, people forget that they're allowed to enjoy the actual process of
Yeah.
lifting weights or any goal
Yeah.
in
You're
general.
allowed to enjoy the process, right? Like people think that
I
like,
mean, that's why you're doing it. You're doing it to be happy.
yeah,
Enjoy the fucking thing.
yeah,
Yeah. When you talked about like reaching that goal and you said, like some people aren't, they'll reach that goal and then they're not happy. And you talked about contentment. I use another word that's very similar to that, but like gratitude. And I say happiness and gratitude is almost like a skill that you have to develop.
yeah,
And if you've spent the entire journey getting to that goal and you've spent that whole time like beating yourself up, like you haven't enjoyed the process. You've been hard on yourself, you've been beating yourself up, you haven't been happy. What the fuck makes you think when you get to the goal, you'll suddenly know how to be happy? You won't.
exactly.
You don't know how to do happiness. You haven't learned how to be happy or grateful. You haven't learned how to appreciate what you have. And so, like you said, you'll get to that goal and you go, fuck, I don't know how to be happy. I should be happy because I've just done this big thing. Fuck, now I also feel guilty because I'm not happy that I've just achieved this big thing. Is there something wrong with me? Holy shit. And like you said, sometimes I see people that reach these massive goals and they do these crazy things and then they're less happy because they go, at least before I thought my unhappiness was because I didn't reach this goal. Now I've reached this goal and I haven't learned how to be happy just because I haven't practiced it
Yeah,
and I'm still unhappy. Fuck, now I have less things to try. I thought that was going to make me happy. It didn't. Now I'm lost. Now I'm fucking depressed and hopeless because I don't know what to do next. And it's like the answer is learn how to be happy. And there's books on that. There's things you can do, but
sort of.
happiness is a skill in itself.
That's something not to like. It's sort of a suffering from success type deal. I can definitely relate to that because I got to the point where it's just like making a bunch of money, that amount of play, like all that stuff, and I was like, wow, I'm still not happy at all. You have this point, and it's like, oh wow, it just. I think once you get to that point, you realize you can very easily flip the mirror and see that the problem is just like how you view yourself internally.
Yes.
I think at that point, because I was like looking around and it was like, what else is there for me to do? Like I was making a ton of money, I was in super good shape. You realize like, oh wow, I just got to work on me. Like that's the last kind of thing. It's really, it's sort of like a humbling deal. It's because you got to go and talk to someone and understand that it's like, oh yeah, I mean, you can get as successful as one, as ripped as you want, but as long if you can't, it's really, really tough, right? If you can't just learn to be content and happy with where you're at, you're it's getting there isn't gonna like change much. I can say definitely like having the means to like support yourself really, really well and all that, that definitely brings, I would say that definitely brings your consistent baseline of happiness up, but it
100%. Yeah.
also raises like your standards, right? So it's like you can very easily like just fall under and be unhappy again, right? It it's one of those deals, right? It's there's like a level where I would say it definitely, like if you go from completely broke to like being able to support yourself to being rich, I think you're definitely going to have a happiness increase. I definitely think you can make your baseline happiness like a 7 out of 10. I don't think anyone's ever going to be like a 10 out of 10 all the time. I think there's
Yeah.
always,
You're happier when you achieve goals.
yeah.
Let's make that clear.
I think it's one of those things. Once you find, like, once you kind of reach that end of that mountaintop for that goal, try to find a mountain to go climb. It keeps you kind of focused. And remember the mission. I think what happens a lot of times is people, they achieve this big goal, and then they're just like, well, what do I do now? So they sit there, twiddle their thumbs. The thing is, it's like when you reach the end of that goal, that mountaintop, the only place is just to go down from there. Kind
Mm.
of, it's like you have to find another mountain to go climb. You have to realize, like, oh wait, I got to step down from this and go do this now. I think that,
And enjoy that process too. Otherwise, you just move the goalposts. Like, be grateful for the mountain you just climbed. I think
yeah,
that's key as well.
yeah, be grateful, like enjoy the view, like you did it,
Yeah.
but now you got to go climb back down to go climb to the next one. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
100%. If someone wants to hit you up for coaching, they want to work on mindset or they want to work on fitness or anything else, where can they find you? What's the best place to get into contact?
BlakeAndersonFitness.com, or just my Instagram, Blake Anderson Fitness. It's pretty simple. Like you'll find me there. But yeah, it's
Perfect.
yeah.
I will leave links to both of those. Any final shout outs?
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it, dude. Been pretty surreal. Yeah, happy to be on here, man. It's yeah, pretty cool.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man.
All right. Links to Blake's Instagram and his website. I appreciate you, Blake. Namaste. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. Enjoy.